Hello and welcome everybody back to Aurelia City. We have started building the green residential blocks last time. We finished one of them and somewhat prepared the area for its expansion. So that's exactly what we are going to do today. But to better blend the existing areas together, there's going to be some mixed building styles as well. We are also going to build all the way towards the museum we built a couple of episodes back and finish that area too. So let's go. Alright, so before we go to that green block again, or a second part of it across that pedestrian road, we need to first, or I need to show you what I did in this area. It was already part of the previous video, but I only placed these two buildings down here and nothing else. So I just wanted to include it in today's video because this block, or this part of this block, is going to be finished today. So we have the tram road, or the tram, just the tracks with the pedestrian road on the side going underneath this area. So we needed to create something over it. And I figured that we're probably going to keep it a bit emptier than it probably needed to be if it didn't have the tracks underneath it. So we're just going to put some planters in there and some kind of an open area, or more open than it might be usual in this place. Now it obviously is a block that is directly on the side of those roundabout buildings that are right around the public space area that we built a really long time ago already. So nothing all that special in here, although in the end it's kind of going to look all right. So I'm placing some stairs because this place is still kind of sloped. One side of this place is higher than the other. On the side of that building that I placed there, the procedural object building, I also placed some stairs right next to that asphalt road, and there's going to be pedestrian paths going through the building because the building actually does have like a little walkways through the middle of the building, you can say, through the center of the building. So that's kind of perfect to use it in here. And then I used a second instance of that Berlin building. I think it's from Berlin, on the side of this open space. And again, it has some opening through the middle, so I can place some pedestrian walk paths through that. I'm not going to be showing in this video how the walk paths have been made because it's pretty much it's pretty much part of every video these days that I'm creating some kind of paths like that. So you could have probably seen that already, how those are made. So kind of straightforward in here, just putting down those retaining walls to create the elevated planter in there. Obviously that's going to be on the level of the upper level of this place. And down here I'm also creating another planter, but this time with these prop curbs, and obviously putting the procedural object grass in here. Now, by the way, a lot of people actually asked what does procedural mean and how I'm actually manipulating all these objects in here. Well, it's a procedural objects mod. It might not be all that super obvious that it is a mod because, you know, when you just say procedural objects, it kind of implies that it's just some sort of an object that, you know, is procedural and may be part of the original game, but it obviously is not. So procedural objects is the name of the mod, and I'm obviously using that to convert all these buildings or all these objects that I am you know, manipulating or customizing, I probably should say, so that I need to convert them into procedural objects with that mod, which has the same name, right? So it's not all that confusing. So I'm using that particular mod to even convert these whatever you call them, these enclosures for the basketball field and the tennis court, right? So they are both kind of different. I'm actually using the tennis court enclosure even for the basketball field because it's kind of looking better, and it doesn't have the whatever you want to call it, you know, the viewers area where viewers would be sitting down, because this place kind of, you know, doesn't really feel right for that. So I'm using just the tennis court enclosure for both of them. But down here, it's actually going to have the decal for the basketball court, basketball field, or whatever you call it. So I'm going to place that down here, and another one slightly above. This place again is kind of elevated or sloped. So just like with the previous block that we have created in the previous episode with these, well, not these, but the buildings that I'm going to build in just a few seconds, I'm also going to have them on multiple levels, or this place is going to be on multiple levels. There's obviously going to be some stairs connecting those levels and all those kinds of things, retaining walls and stuff like that, right? So it should definitely look very complicated in the end with the stairs, and definitely is complicated because it took a long time to set up. Now in here, I'm just finishing that tunnel, or whatever you want to call it. It's not really a tunnel; it's just a short underpass, maybe for the trams. And the portal to it, I'm just decorating with those beams on top of it. Pretty much doing that with all the rest of the entrances underground in the city, because I just like it. It looks kind of all right. Now this stone path in here is going up. I don't think it's really all that obvious from these shots, because obviously I'm looking straight down most of the time. But this path is actually steeply going up, so it's not all that easy to connect stuff to it, because it's not straight, right? So in here, for example, I'm building stairs on one side where it's obviously going down towards that path. And then this some sort of a planter, like a mini planter in here. It's going to have the grass inside. And on the opposite side of it, opposite from the stairs, is just going to be like a level, I don't know, area where people can just go to that place without using stairs. And this is what I was talking about. Finally, we are putting down the buildings that we already used in the previous part of this block. Because like I said, I really wanted to blend together these blocks, and the best way to do it is just to use the same buildings that you used in the block right on the other side of the road that is going through this area, which in this case is that pedestrian path, which is not really a road, but still. So I used those buildings from, I'm not sure, Boston, I think, that I just recently downloaded from the workshop, the bigger ones that I built pretty much at the start of building this block, and then some garages, underground garages for those as well. I'm going to use those buildings a lot more on the opposite side of that asphalt street that they are built towards, but I only did that basically to just make this block so that it has multiple styles, which is going to make it more easy for me to just end this block, because I don't really like doing like one style of building in one block and completely different style of buildings in different blocks. It just kind of looks strange. So it's much better to just mix the buildings together in these various blocks. When I say block, I obviously mean like a group of buildings divided by the roads, car roads usually, not really the pedestrian paths, but the asphalt roads. So it's just going to look better. What can I say? I think I probably covered that problem a bit more than I wanted to. But anyway, I think it's clear how I intended this place to be. So while I was explaining that, we are doing that transition between the different levels in this area. And like I said, it's going to be mostly stairs. Now, usually I'm using these prop stairs, and these prop stairs are actually very narrow. And in this particular area, I think I'm using 2 of them side by side, but I usually use 3 of them. I started using 2 of them, I think, when I was doing the arch with that tram station, if you remember that. But it kind of was slightly problematic because pedestrian paths in this game are not exactly all that narrow. Even the invisible one, even though the invisible one that I'm using is kind of narrow, but sometimes people might be going, a bit too much on the side of those stairs and maybe clipping into the walls or something like that. So I usually just use the props like 3 times side by side, so it doesn't happen. But in this particular place, when I set up the pedestrian paths, it was actually looking fine. Maybe it's just because there's not that many people walking down these paths in here just yet, but maybe in the future it's going to be a bit more of a problem. But you're going to see in the cinematics that right now it's not really happening. So hopefully it's not going to be happening in the future as well. Anyway, I'm almost done with this second block of these. Again, I still don't remember the names of these buildings. I should probably just call them like modern apartments and be done with it. So I'm just finishing these modern apartment blocks. I don't think that this is going to be the last one, because we still probably need to do exactly what I was explaining before. I still probably need to build maybe a couple of blocks on the opposite sides of the streets that are surrounding the original green roof apartments block, because, for the reason that I explained, to just blend together the styles of buildings. So maybe in the next episode, we are still going to see these kinds of buildings on the other side of that asphalt road that we can see right there. So just so that these blocks can be, a bit more natural looking, I suppose. And the streets are not really looking like they are dividing the individual blocks all that much, right? The streets kind of need to look like they have a purpose in this place, other than just obviously transporting cars or serving for cars, but also as some I don't know, integral part of the architectural planning of the block, of the area, whatever. I'm just making stuff up in here. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I want to use those kinds of buildings in some different places as well, that's all. And it looks like I actually included at least one shot of me building these pedestrian paths. So just like always, I'm going to basically use some empty land right next to where I want to put these. I'm going to usually write down how I want to do that, how many segments and nodes I need to do, and I'm just going to build a very roughly the path network, and then I'm just going to use move it to move it into place, and obviously align all the heights and all that, and then obviously convert it into the invisible path, which is not only invisible, but it's narrower than the visible pedestrian path. So it's going to fit the narrow stairs like I explained. Now we are in this block, which is kind of right next to what we've been doing at the start of this episode. That little, well, I should probably not call it plaza, that little opening with the planters. And we are going to continue in a very, very similar style even in here. So I'm going to use those, again, I'm not sure, but I think they are called Boston residence buildings. I'm going to use those a bit more together with their matching the garages. I don't know if they could be called underground garages, because they are not exactly going underground, but somewhat beneath the level of the street, which is kind of looking nice, especially in this place. It's going to look nice. I think I might use these garages a bit more in different parts of the city, because they look really, really good. And it's just something different. It's always good that you find something in the workshop that's just slightly different, so you can liven up the areas a bit more. So on this side, I'm just putting some random commercial buildings to kind of also cover the back sides of the garages, because they have the tables, like the garden tables on the sides of those garages, which I don't really like all that much. And unfortunately, they are part of the model. They are not props. So if you want to get rid of them, you would need to convert the garages into procedural objects. But then it would not really work, because there's a clipping plane inside that building, so that you can have the garage going actually down slightly beneath the surface. So it's kind of complicated to use it as a procedural object, and it's probably best to just leave it as it is, which means that you can't really get rid of those chairs there, which means that you need to cover them with something if you don't want to see them. So that's exactly what I did. Now in here we are connecting to that place we built at the start of the episode. So this is the building, the how do you call this place in English? Courtyard maybe, or backyard? I don't know. Backyard kind of seems weird because it's not really all that green, but whatever. This place of the building in here, it's going to be connected to that empty area that we built at the start, because it also has the building that has those walkways through the center. So it's going to be perfect to build some kind of, again, invisible pedestrian paths through this place. And there's going to be quite a lot of people actually walking down here, because it's directly continuing into that public space area. So all the people who live there, or even in these buildings that I'm building in here, are obviously going to use that path to go straight there. So that's going to be nice that this place is obviously going to see a lot of people walking, in various directions. So finishing this block rather quickly with pretty much the same buildings that I used nearby, pretty much for the same reason that I already talked about at length, so that I can have the blocks in kind of similar styles. And now we are doing something very important here, and we need to connect that museum building to some rows. I already prepared back in 2 episodes back, I think, I already prepared some sort of a cargo entrance, let's say, to the museum, which is actually located below the main level entrance of that museum building, and that's going to be underneath those little waves that are going off the side of the building. So we need to prepare this road. That's kind of going to, in this a half circle, going to go down, going to obviously gather some elevation when going up, so that it's not that steep. and it's going to create some sort of a green area. I don't really want to fill this place with buildings too much. I am going to place like one tiny little building there, just to, you know, just to kind of make it more interesting, let's say. But otherwise, I'm going to keep this space pretty much completely empty and just place a lot of green in this area. There's also going to be these stairs going pretty much like cutting through that block and down into the plaza that we built, I think 2 episodes back, like I said. So that the museum is nicely going to be connected. And obviously the museum is a very unique building, very unique looking building. So it would be kind of a shame to just hide it from all the sides. It's obviously open from the side of that plaza that we built, but even from this side it's looking interesting, and it would make sense that it's visible from this side. It's not covered by some skyscrapers or something like that. Now, we also need to do something about this place though, because obviously we have a lot of elevation differences and we can't really leave it just like this. Well, technically we could, but since the museum building is converted into procedural objects, it doesn't have the base that would otherwise appear for the normal buildings, which sure, I could probably just add with some certain props, but it's much better to probably go and create some sort of like a pedestrian area all around the museum building. So that's exactly what we're doing in here. And then obviously connect all the different levels with stairs again. Now we have these little stairs that go to the gravel area, which is probably the main level of this, let's say, mini park in here. And then we have those stairs on the left side right now that go up into that main level of the road before it goes down to the museum, right? So this place is not really going to see a lot of people because it's not really going to go to some, let's say, public transport stations. That's probably somewhere else. But this place is actually going to be connected, now that I think of it, to the public transport in that public space area and the rounded public space area, because this place is actually going to connect all sides together, all the sides of these blocks together. So maybe it's actually going to see a lot of people, but when I was doing the cinematics, I don't think I noticed that many people walking down here. But that's kind of also because the main road that's on the left right now, yeah, that one, is on the other side, it's empty. So there's no one really walking from there because, you know, there's no one there. Anyway, guys, we are almost at the end of today's episode. We are just placing down some trees, some decals. This was, by the way, something that was incredibly useful. I had to blend like a cliff texture on the regular terrain and a procedural object grass, even though I might have placed that as a prop. I'm not sure at this point, but it's very nice that you can actually place these decals, so that you can cover the transition between those two texture types, which helped me a lot to make this place actually very nice looking, surprisingly, because when it was lacking all these trees, it was actually not looking all that great, and I was not exactly sure what I'm gonna do with it, but the decals definitely helped it a lot. Anyway, guys, like I said, we are at the end of today's video. So if you liked it, you can always put a thumbs up underneath it, write some comment, and share the video with your friends. And if you're new here, you can always subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for watching. Take care. I'll hopefully see you next week. Goodbye.